Did enough to wrench it away. Caught in the dive for Heufner. You're kidding me. His depth and resolve has been tested. Cotton drops. Not sure what to do, so kicks it back up to the top. Shot clock at 5 for Cotton. That's ridiculous. Bryce Cotton at his very, very best.
All right. Hello, everybody. It's Adam Batt here from the Wildcat Wrap. It's been a while between episode 1 and episode 2 of season 2, but we're back, where today's podcast is proudly supported and presented by the team at the Barstool Fix for your Barstool needs in terms of articles, super coach advice, all the off-season ins and outs. And there have been many of them across the last month in particular. Game reviews and previews coming up for our NBL season 26 podcast about everything that you would want to know. All you have to do is head to the Barstool Fix Instagram, Facebook, their webpage as well. And a new face here at the Wildcat Wrap. Really exciting. We've got Zac Olsen all the way from Canberra. He is freezing at the moment, as you should be, living in Canberra. But that's not the reason why he came on here. He didn't come on here to tell us about the weather and why he chose to live in Canberra. He came on here to talk about all things Perth Wildcats. So, Zac, welcome firstly to the Wildcat Wrap, your first official podcast too. But also tell us about your story. How did the love of Perth Wildcats begin for you? How is a Perth Wildcat fan living in Canberra? Lord knows how that is happening. And also talk to us about everything Perth Wildcats, your Insta page. So over to you, mate.
Thank you so much, Adam. Look, so Perth Wildcats, I've been watching them for 5 or 6 years now. But in the past 3 or 4 years, really started to get way more in depth into the entire NBL, but especially the Perth Wildcats. The reason I decided to go for them was purely because of Bryce Cotton's talent. Just watching him is electric. It's absolutely amazing to watch. And when you're like, as young as I was back then, watching this guy hit 3-pointers from everywhere and making everything happen, it really makes you get into it. And look, it is quite hard watching sometimes, especially because of the time zones when the season's on. Games will be like starting at 9:30, 9:45 over here. So I do have to stay up quite late. But look, definitely it's great to watch, and I'm willing to stay up and that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's great to watching the Perth Wildcats. And with the Everything Perth Wildcats Instagram page was purely because I realized how much I really am interested in the NBL, and how there was almost a bit of a hole or gap in the actual news and reporting for the Wildcats on Instagram. And so I decided to start that up and been working slowly, building up, but hopefully trying to get bigger in the next year.
Well, we're really lucky and privileged to have you on, Zac, and it's fantastic. And we know that the bedtimes can be a little bit late with you young individuals nowadays. So good job on pushing through. And you got to see some incredible performances across this season in particular, or I guess just recently gone. But before we dive into, I guess, everything off season, the signings, the new players, and maybe who may be coming in or going out. The first episode of season 2 was all about the great man Bryce Cotton and him sort of going on a different journey in his basketball and NBL pathway. So without diving into the politics about too much, because that's been covered in depth by not just the Wildcat Wrap, but almost every other NBL platform across Australia. Why don't you tell us what are your thoughts, initial thoughts when it all happened, and maybe a couple of positive memories of Bryce that ring in your ear or ring in your mind across those 6 years that you've been following the Perth Wildcats?
Yeah, look, obviously I think everyone, even any NBL fan, was sad at the start, purely because we didn't know if he was going to stay in Australia. And yeah, look, it was really sad, but I think it was a time coming that everyone as a Wildcats fan or all Wildcats fans had to accept. I do think that the whole process and handling of it wasn't the best, but look, obviously that's been covered by everyone. So look, some of my favorite memories was just the game winners, just like on the edge of my seat jumping. And I think especially out of the past 5 or 6 years, just those MVP is just something else that I don't think anyone else has ever seen. And look, I think this year especially was just Bryce Cotton at another level. And it was just, honestly, that 59-point game, I've never seen anything better than that. It was amazing.
It was interesting too. Like we're talking a little bit off air, and you're sort of saying that like across this season in particular, it's almost as if he had a bit of a chip on his shoulder. So do you want to like elaborate on that a little bit about what you saw from Bryce in particular this season? A record-breaking season in so many ways, but I feel like there was a different fuel to his fire this season in particular.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when it came to watching, and as like a basketball player myself, I could kind of tell his attitude, and he was still, because it's Bryce Conn, he's a very lovely person, so he's not gonna like moan and complain about the kind of things, but you could almost see every time there was a mistake or like a dumb play that happened, he just looked fed up or miserable. And I'm not sure if that was himself just not having a good time or that he was just feeling he was in the wrong system. And I think what he was doing this season and why he played so well was maybe trying to get interest from the NBA or something like that. I'm unsure of that, but I just think he kind of played so well. He wanted out. He wanted to show everyone else that he's still like as good as he is, and that he can play and produce anywhere. And look, he still had an amazing season, and I think it was also a bit of a farewell tour maybe as well. I think he knew in the back of his mind that he wasn't coming back, and it was kind of a few rumors and little like whispers around it, but nothing was really confirmed until he left. So yeah,
it's like clearly, I think you have to say from numbers perspective, at least his best season in the red and black. And yeah, as you said, there was sort of an inevitability about it that he was always going to leave. But I think Perth Wildcats fans were just so certain, and they were happy for him to leave, knowing that he was probably going to go to Japan. Just the money, the NBL and Perth just wouldn't be able to match it. And then, yeah, you had the sort of, I guess, the drive-by and the unforeseen circumstances. But as great as Bryce was and is, especially in that previous season, the Perth Wildcats still didn't have enough to win the championship. So just goes to show that as great as one player is, you do, I guess, need to follow that Tasmania kind of path, maybe that Illawarra path, that you need a whole team to really get the job done nowadays. And speaking of the team, let's sort of go to a couple of returning faces and then a couple of new faces as well. So let's talk about who they already have signed on their books, and then, of course, both new and also who was already ready to roll from the previous season. So let's go through the breakdown one by one. This was done quite early, and this was really important, I think, for Perth fans. Christian Doolittle, a big 3-year contract. It's the most that you can sign. Really weird in the NBL. The limit is only 3 years, but nonetheless, we're happy we've got him. I think Christian Doolittle in particular, he likes to stay at places for long periods of time, playing in Puerto Rico. The team, I think he's at a new team now, but I think before that he was at a team for about 4 or 5 seasons. So he likes continuity in his life, clearly. And then we've got Dylan Windler signed for 2 years. That's sort of, I guess, maybe was curious at the time because we didn't know exactly what was going to happen with that Bryce situation. But again, having players come back to the NBL, known commodities, and that saying is going to be said quite a bit across this podcast, like knowing players and what they can give and sort of give you as a team. That's sort of really important. Sunday Dech, that rumor was sort of coming around quite a bit, and it's what Perth have lacked ever since the great Damian Martin left, having a defensive-minded guard. So 3 years with the third year being a team option. That Mayan, so quite surprising, but I think he's one of those players that he could certainly add that rebounding strength to the forward department. So he's 1 year with a club option after that. And Cam Heufner, 2-year contract with the first year being a DP. So they were all of our new signings. So if you just pick a couple of them, Zach, just to go through, maybe that really stand out for you or you think are really important, and maybe they themselves, those individuals, are going to be, I guess, key parts to the Perth Wildcats roster moving forward.
Look, obviously, number one, KD, Christian Doolittle. He will be the star this season. He'll be our main man running forward, I believe. Just his composure is really something that we valued. I think while Bryce Cotton was out or while Bryce wasn't having his best games or something like that, we relied on Christian Doolittle and he stepped up. And I think that's something that the Perth Wildcats really needed, and we got that. And as a fan, it's really, really good to see him back because just of how he composes himself during the games. Even if he's having a horrible game, he'll stay level-headed, keep putting up shots, and that's what we kind of needed, especially with Bryce gone now. We need someone to step up and take the shots, even if they're going to miss them. We just need someone to be not afraid to take the shots for sure. Someone else that stood out to me was Dylan Windler. He didn't have the best season. Everyone had really high expectations for him last year. He did have that one, I think it was 34, 33 points point game, but he wasn't what everyone expected him to be as a 100-game NBA player. He definitely did show glimpses, and hopefully this year he can step up for sure with his 3-and-D kind of wing. And look, I'll just touch on Sunday Dech and Mayan in just a tiny little bit. So, look, I think what the Perth Wildcats are doing is a bit of a guard/wing stack and a 3-and-D stack. Look, all those three, Dylan Windler, Sunday Dech, and Mayan, all 3-and-D kind of guys, kind of all do the same kind of thing, except Sunday Dech is a bit smaller at the guard position. But I think that obviously they're all really good role players, very good signings, but we just need someone to really step up and be the star of the team. And that could be Christian Doolittle or someone else if we sign soon.
Yeah, it's obviously the two imports. We know that they're going to be big talking points there as well. To as you sort of rightly say, Christian Doolittle is that big piece, and we know that now the roster is definitely going to be built around him. He's going to be getting lots of touches, and in that second year, he was simply amazing at sort of getting to his spots, and he had a little bit more confidence and trust in his game. But also, I think John really empowered him to sort of tell us and show us that we know that you can, especially down low on the post, he's just almost unstoppable because he's so strong. He's a brute of a man. But then he's got that floater game too. We know rebounding is super strong in his game, and then he can even get out to the three. So he's a very well-rounded individual and a massive defensive, I guess, aspect to him as well. Dylan Windler came in with that big rebounding, I guess, background for it. We saw it in patches, but maybe not enough, and wasn't enough to give him a 2-year deal. Well, that's sort of still to be determined at the time, but known commodity. There you go. It's the second time already in the podcast, but I think that knowing what you're going to get from him, and players so often in their second year, imports in particular, they just have a little bit more confidence what they're doing. They know how they're going to be refereed. So yeah, I mean, it's certainly something that I think you're mildly happy with being a Perth Wildcats fan, with still that big third one, just waiting to see how that falls. And yeah, the other three, I think you touched on quite nicely. Now, what they already have, so from we know that Jesse Wagstaff, he was always going to be, I guess, a case-by-case basis. It all came down to Jesse, what does he want to do? So he is back on board. Tom Jerovic, a development player. Dante Rosso Nanta, he was one of the few players that was actually re-signed. He actually had a contract all ready to go, and he's going to be on the main roster now. Elijah Pepper, that was a team option, along with David Aquera as well. So both the team options were taken up. So out of those players that have sort of come back or were already on the books, because there weren't many before the signing spree that sort of happened early on, and then there hasn't been a lot since. Any of those individuals that sort of pique your interest in particular, Zach?
Well, three people strike me instantly. Is obviously Jesse Wagstaff. Look, he's getting a bit older. His basketball ability, his athleticism, it's coming slow down, and you can't hate on him because he still brings so much to this team. And he has been there through coaching changes, ownership changes, everything, and he is almost the backbone of that team. And losing Bryce as that leader, we need someone to just take the charge, really help the young guys. And I think Jesse Wagstaff will do that amazingly, even if he's not playing as much basketball as he was. The second person that stands out to me is Elijah Pepper. He is phenomenal at basketball. He is an amazing player. We saw flashes of it last year while Bryce was out and him and Henny were the backcourt. Something I really like about him is he's not afraid to take shots. He has a really high arcing jump shot, so he'll take shots over literally any big man, any wing, whatever. And someone else that also takes my eye is David Aquera. He played, I think he started 2 or 3 games, maybe 4. He really showed good flashes of being almost a baby Christian Doolittle kind of build, not as strong, but he's got really good length. He's a really good defender. He's shown some flashes of the 3, but that definitely needs some work. But he's really good around the rim as well, I reckon.
Yeah, massive fan of Elijah Pepper, and we're going to get to him a little bit later on about what he's been doing in the offseason. He's just going Burko crazy. He's going next level. All of those, superlatives, and he's just taking the NBL 1 West by storm. But so they are our new faces and returning faces, but it's kind of like who's next as well. So who's next on our radar? So what kind of player is Perth still looking for to shape their roster? And they're still looking for a Marquee 5 spot. It's I've been listening to the NBL podcast too. A much less a product than the NBL Fix, of course, but nonetheless, I rise above that, and I still listen to those people. But pretty much any Marquee that comes on the market, it's like, Perth are definitely interested, eh? So they're looking for a Marquee 5. We know first and foremost, it's been what they've been missing across the last 4 seasons in particular. So they need a Marquee 5 guy. Yani Wetzell was very, very close, but the Japanese money, unfortunately, was just a bit too much. You've got JLA that's floating in the background. He's training in Melbourne at the moment, so it's kind of like until he makes a decision. He played in Basketball Africa League last season. He's sort of still on the board at this stage. So until he comes out and says, I'm signing with Basketball Africa, or I'm signing elsewhere, then we just have to go, all right, we have to wait and see. As far as I know, a contract hasn't been sort of given to him yet, so we're sort of watching and waiting for him. Do you think, is that Marquee 5 spot, is that the most important thing that sort of Perth need at the moment? We'll get to sort of the third import spot and what you think that may look like, but is it they desperately need a 5? You've got Doolittle, you've got Mayan, you've got Windler as those sort of 3-4 kind of players too. But how do you see it at the moment?
Look, I think with Christian Doolittle, he's more of a 4. He can play the 5. He doesn't mind playing the 5, but I think if we played him more at the 4, get him in the mid-range, which he's really good at, get him in the 3. He's shown a few threes. He's really, really good when it comes to, spreading the floor, helping out. He can even assist a bit. So I think we really need a post-focused big man. And look, someone I did have an idea of last year was Tanner Groves, but he's obviously not come back to the NBL. But look, I do think JLA, if did sign to Perth, would be a good signing, but almost a bit of a liability. And that sounds crazy because obviously he's a very good basketball player, but I don't think he would just don't think he would fit our kind of system that we have going, because he's a bit of a rim runner kind of guy, and that's not what from what we've seen from John really in the past few seasons, that's not how he wants to play. He wants to pass the ball a lot, find the right shot, and obviously with someone like JLA, you can just pass to him, he'll dunk it. But I think John really wants to kind of stay away from the rim, and that's why we've seen so many 3-and-D guys come into the team recently, like Sunday Dech and Mayan, and also Dylan Windler re-signing. So I think it's more of a kind of like a pass first team instead of a rim running team. So I think JLA obviously would be a great signing, but just wouldn't work with our system that we have going in the past few years.
I like what you sort of talk about in regards to pass first, and those Tasmanian teams I touched on earlier, the Illawarra Hawks teams, the teams that have won the last couple of championships, they have massively been pass first, and they've been built around a system, not so much one particular individual. So maybe that's what JR is trying to change, or maybe that's JR what he was trying to do the whole time. But when you have this kind of remarkable individual like Bryce, it sort of has to. It has to go around him. He has to have the certain amount of touches that he requires as a superstar of the competition. But let's sort of keep on moving through. Ian Clark is a really interesting one. So in addition to that Marquee 5 that they desperately need, it's the 1 or 2 spot, and preferably a shooting guard, I guess, or maybe a point guard, or a combo guard possibly too. So they're going to find out Summer League. Danny Mills has no qualms in waiting late in the piece to find the right person. We saw it with Christian Doolittle. Even Dylan Windler wasn't super early on last season too. to. And maybe it's finding an individual who's familiar to the league. And like Ian Clark, he's hurt the Perth Wildcats so many times across many, many seasons and many games from Melbourne United. You could do worse than get Ian Clark, but maybe it's kind of waiting until after Summer League. And then if no one is really standing out, or if the players that you want have already taken up, lucrative offers elsewhere, and Ian Clark is still on the board, then he's a guy that I think could work really well within the kind of players that they've got. Having Windler, Elijah Pepper, Ian Clark. Even if Ian's happy to come off the bench, like that would be like amazing to have that kind of guy come off the bench. So quick thoughts on him before we move on to a couple of others.
Look, I won't get too in depth with this one, but look, I do think having Ian Clark is obviously a bonus. He's got NBA championship experience. He's got great experience with Melbourne. He did actually come off the bench a few times with Melbourne, so I don't think he would mind coming off the bench as a bit of a mentor kind of player. But look, he definitely would work with the system. He's a solid defender, good 3-point shooter. He's a bit old, and look, that's not a problem. But maybe it would become a problem with injuries and that kind of injury liability, that kind of stuff. So, look, would he fit? Would I love to have him? Sure. But would he be the best fit out of everyone available? Maybe not.
Yeah, that's it. It's certainly a different way to look at it too, and that's fair, because you're right. As you do get older, you have more soft tissue injuries. We know that Ian has missed parts of seasons across the last couple of years due to just that. So yeah, it's certainly a risk getting that kind of individual in. He has, tremendous attributes from an experience perspective too. So yeah, like there's always pros and cons of any kind of player that you're looking at. The last couple that was sort of floating around, you spoke about him a little bit earlier, Ben Henschel. The college path didn't eventuate for him due to eligibility challenges, and the NBA draft, he clearly didn't get the backing that maybe he was hoping for, or interest from NBA teams via training camps and workouts. Is this a no-brainer? Like, as if he's prepared to come back, do you just go, give him like a 2-3 year contract, give him obviously a little bit more money than he would have been earning the last couple of seasons as he was coming through? And is it, Elijah and Ben, is that the backcourt that you sort of build around?
I reckon, without a doubt, if he says, I want to come back to the NBL, you absolutely have to sign Ben Henschel. He brings the youth. He's a very kind of stylish kind of player. He loves to get like in his crossover and his handles and that kind of stuff. And I think Elijah Pepper and Benny Henschel would be an absolutely lethal backcourt in 2 years. They would be 3-point snipers. They can run to the rim and that kind of stuff. So look, if he says he wants to come back to the NBL, without a doubt, they have to make it happen, I reckon.
Yeah, and I think that I was really impressed with Ben, especially in the second half of last season, is it wasn't so much his scoring, it was his defense. And it was one of his big liabilities. And that's something that Elijah probably still needs to work a little bit more on. We know his scoring power is insane. But Ben in particular, he made big defensive plays. And I think that he really tried to knuckle down on that particular part of his game. And he came up with, important deflections, important defensive rebounds, important blocks and steals when the team really needed it. So if he carries that on, then as you said, if he wants to come back to the NBL, we don't know what his thinking is, then that's sort of a bit of a no-brainer there. And it's sort of a long-term kind of backcourt that you're sort of thinking of. I feel like you've got maybe a little bit more to add to those individuals just quickly before we move on.
Yeah. Look, not too much to add. I think Benny Henschel, his confidence was what made his defense a lot better in the second half of the season. He showed, look, he's not afraid to take big shots. He's guarding the team's best offensive threat, the best offensive guard, or even wing, because he can play small forward sometimes. And I think that confidence is what built his defense. And if he does come back to the Wildcats or the NBL and he keeps that confidence up, he'll be without a doubt a star for sure. And Elijah Pepper is a bit of a liability on defense. He's a bit of a smaller guard. I think he's like 6'2", which isn't that, obviously that's pretty tall still, but for a basketball guard is it's still a bit small. He actually is pretty strong, so he actually can kind of defend in the post if a couple seconds if needed. But just that kind of perimeter defense he needs to work on. But I reckon we should, if we can get them back together and build around them and give them the opportunity to be the starting backcourt for the year, I reckon it will really pay off.
Yep, no, I like it too, and yeah, really interesting points that you bring up with sort of having them just sort of grow across the next couple of seasons. Where when you've got Windler signed for 2 years, you got Doolittle signed for 3 years, and then Sunday Dech as well too. So Sunday could easily be coming off the bench, and they don't need to maybe splash out hard for an import guard. Maybe one of them can come off the bench too. So yeah, so many possibilities. The last couple, I don't know whether you've heard too much about this NBL one West guy, but here in the West, he's been going nuts. Johnny Narkle be on the radar even for a DP spot, lighting up the competition for the Geraldton Buccaneers. He's averaging 24.7 points, just under 5 assists and 7.5 rebounds. We know that there is a massive jump from NBL 1 to NBL. So, those numbers that any player posts in the NBL 1 comp, whilst it's a really great building ground for many players to have breakout seasons and get onto NBL rosters, but we're not expecting Johnny to sort of be a massive contributor. But from a raw talent perspective, does this seem like a path and a player that the Perth Wildcats should be looking into from a DP perspective?
Yeah, definitely. Look, absolutely. Like, you're averaging big points. You're getting pretty good all-round stats. We saw this with Todd Withers last year, coming into the DP spot, playing quite a few games, even starting one, I think. Todd Withers last year was amazing, and using that DP spot as a development kind of thing is definitely something that the Perth Wildcats should definitely use. And just in case, people get injured, that's what it's for. But also people leave me halfway through the season, that kind of stuff, for NBA or something like that. Having him there as a scoring threat off the bench or whatever is just something that we could definitely use, especially because if Ben Hendry doesn't come back, we definitely need that scorer. And if we can have someone off the bench that's just going to line up for give you 15 points in 10 minutes kind of thing, then that's definitely what we should go for.
Yeah, no, it's certainly something to look into and track him across the rest of the season, see if he keeps up those numbers. The last marquee kind of player, and again, it was sort of similar to JLA, similar to Ben Henschel, I guess, in a way, a number of other high-profile marquee players is Will McDowell-White. So, having him as a marquee guy, a marquee point guard, as great as Ben Henschel and Elijah Pepper could be, if you can afford to have one of them coming off the bench, that would just be amazing. So Will McDowell-White, we're simply just waiting on him, and he did it a couple of seasons ago. It was he was playing games with a number of us on Instagram, dropping little hints here and there. And then he went over to Europe, I'm pretty sure. So he could be a nice piece. But again, it's sort of just waiting on what Will's going to do.
Yeah. Will is definitely a bit of a conspiracy theory kind of. Is he going to go here? Is he going to go here? What's he doing? That kind of thing. I think that's the best way to describe him, because he's just a very mysterious kind of guy. And look, do I expect him to come to the Wildcats? Maybe, but I just don't think he really enjoyed the NBL from watching him at the Breakers last. He was playing here, he liked it, but I think if he did come back, he would probably try and team up with his brother in Illawarra. So, but yeah, would I love to have him at the Wildcats? Absolutely, but I don't see it really happening, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I'm probably the same too. I think born in Brisbane as well, so that for mine, it seems like a perfect fit for him if he was to decide to come back to the NBL. But I feel like that sort of path for him is done, and he's moving on to Europe and see what happens from there. Maybe in a couple of years' time, he might come back. But for now, that's sort of it. That was really good to dive into maybe who's going to be next on the radar. And we're just always watching. But yeah, Summer League's going to be fascinating. Lots of NBL fans, Wildcat Wrap loyal fans, they're going to be tuning into there, listening to Danny Mills when he has, chats with NBL representatives and to see maybe who or what kind of player might be on the radar. But let's quickly talk a bit of off-season news. So off-season player update. Who's on fire in the off season? So the NBL 1, the New Zealand NBL 2, a couple of players are there, and then even over in Puerto Rico too. So I'll try to race through just a couple of the individuals. I have done a bit of a breakdown of all the players, but KD playing in Puerto Rico for Carolina, should I say, averaging 15 points, 45% from the 3-point land, 83% free throw, 7 rebounds and 4.5 assists. Dylan Windler, no off-season action for him, so he's just resting his body and he's getting ready for hopefully what will be a really big season. Sunday Dech played for NBL 1 South, the Knox Raiders. He's averaging 17.5 points, 6 rebounds, and about 49% from the field. He also represented an NBL select team in the B League United in a global invitation series, along with Todd Withers too. And speaking of Todd Withers, he's actually playing for the Warwick Senators in the NBL 1 West. He's averaging 17.5 points and 4 3-pointers. That man, he's at West Adelaide Bearcats, where he's averaging 20 points, just under 4 assists and 8 rebounds. And he's playing alongside development players and recent signee Cam Heufner. So he's actually averaging 18.5 points, 7.7 rebounds, and he's averaging 3.75 3-pointers. It's pretty hard to average 0.75 with a 3-pointer, but we're just going on the numbers, of course. Dante Russo-Nance, he's taken us over the Tasman to the New Zealand NBL. He's playing for the Manawatu Jets, averaging 18 points, 4.5 assists, 2.5 steals, and 5 rebounds. And rounding us out, we've got David Aquera, who's also in the New Zealand NBL, played for the Franklin Bulls. He's averaging 10 points, 3 assists, 1.5 blocks, 8 rebounds. And to the man of the moment, we spoke about him a little bit earlier on for quite a bit of time, but Elijah Pepper, also playing for the Warwick Senators, where he's averaging 35 points, 7 assists, 6.5 rebounds, and just under 6 3-pointers. So even if you just wanted to, Zach, maybe pick a couple of those players who, the numbers that you're seeing, they all look pretty impressive. And we sort of spoke about the jump from NBL 1 to NBL being quite large earlier, but you'd still rather than be getting 18 to 20 points than, 5 to 10 or 0. So yeah, any of those players that really sort of stand out for you from the off-season action for these guys?
Todd Withers, absolutely. I think we should definitely look to sign him as a full rotational kind of player. He just brings a lot to the board when he comes on. He's a very, jack of all trades, master of none, and that kind of sounds a bit rude, but he can just do everything on the court at a pretty good level. Like, he can defend, he can shoot, he can drive, he's good at everything. And I think having that kind of jack of all trades kind of player off the bench is what you're looking for from a bench player, because obviously with the starters, Elijah Pepper, he's good at shooting. Christian Doolittle, he's kind of a jack of all trades, but he's actually good at all of them as well. And so I think having those jack of all trade players coming off the bench is definitely something that I would look to have. And Todd, who did a great number last year when he actually had his chance, and I think he showed the NBL how good he is, and I think they should take a chance on him and see how he goes. Someone else, probably David Aquera. That's pretty solid. Look, he still is a very raw talent. He's still pretty young, quite raw. But if we can just keep giving them that faith and playing him and developing him in the hardest stage, which is the NBL, giving him 10 minutes a night, just say go out there for 10 minutes, play absolute hardest, show us what you can do, and then over the years we'll see where that goes. And look, great journey up to Sunday, making the NBL select team as well with Todd. I saw a little snippet of an interview, and he seemed to have really enjoyed it, and so yeah, good on them.
Yeah, it's a really great opportunity, and the fact that they were able to be in the mix for, I'm sure, was maybe a squad of 10 or 12. The fact that those two individuals representing the Perth Wildcats got in there, just a great experience, no doubt too. Just a massive fan for mine of Sunday Dech. I think he's going to be a big game changer for Perth, and they can maybe get back to a little bit more defense. And it's what the club was renowned for all those years ago when they went through that very strong run of championships, and they've moved away just ever so slightly from that, more of a, an attacking kind of mantra. It's kind of like, we're going to score this much, can you beat us that way? So, and it doesn't really gel with me personally. It's obviously extremely high octane, it's entertaining, and that's great for the fans, but I kind of think it's that simple theory as offense will win you games, but defense is going to win you championships. So some really great performers across the board there. And as I said, you'd rather them be getting those 18 to 20 point kind of numbers than not even getting any game time at all. So yeah, certainly looking great from an off-season perspective. Just to sort of round let's talk all things fixtures. So we've got a lot of fixtures to cover. We've got the NBL Blitz, which is your way, Zach. Very, very exciting. We'll get to that very soon. We've got the Ignite Cup, the new in-season tournament, which we'll get your thoughts on. And then, of course, the season 25-26 full fixtures. So let's start off with the Blitz. The Blitz is coming your way. Hopefully people will be able to get in the venue if it's not too frosted over, I guess. Down in Canberra, they're probably going to be in for a bit of shock with that cold weather. But you're going to be making your way to the Blitz, I believe, Zach. So maybe give us a bit of insights about what you and some of the other members of the Barstool Fix team are going to be doing down there.
Look, I'm really, really excited to have the Blitz down here. I think it's a great opportunity to just show Canberra and basketball fans. As I'm living in Canberra, NBL and basketball is absolutely massive here. I mean, we have basketball stadiums that people are playing at like 9 o'clock because there's so many games during the day that people can't play. And so showing that, like, that fan base that we have in Canberra and potentially a new team in the future could be really, really good. And I'm really, really excited just to watch everyone play. Like, it'd be just so good to just watch back-to-back games, watching new play styles, new players, young players stepping up, showing what they've been working on in the off-season. I'm really excited. And with some of us basketball fix people, we're going to try and get some interviews and just kind of game clips and that kind of thing. Just really get an insight into what is actually happening during the season and what each kind of team's plan is. And with this Blitz, it also gives coaches and stuff a game clip to watch before each game when they're versing different teams, because you're watching a team and you're going, oh, okay, they're going to use this guy to shoot here, they're going to go use this play, and it's really helpful for coaches to work around other people's defenses and offense.
Yeah, no, spot on there as well too. And as you sort of said, it's going to be great to sort of trial it in Canberra. And you sort of alluded to it a little bit earlier. We know that the NBL is big on expansion. I think Canberra is going to be next in their bubble for sure. So hopefully from a success perspective, as in just hosting it and having all the teams there, and hopefully having fans come to the stands and pack it out, that's going to be a really nice endorsement to have the next Canberra team. Just who is it? The Canberra Cannons? Is that right?
Yeah, Canberra Cannons. Yeah, that's their name. Yeah.
And then do you think, and is there still an NBL 1 Canberra Cannons team, or is that completely shut down? And do you think that it would be worthwhile if they were to go down that path of a new team in Canberra? Do you think it's worthwhile revitalizing the Canberra Cannons, or is it starting from scratch with a Canberra something else?
Look, we do have an NBL 1 East team, Canberra Gunners. Actually really good. I think they've won 2 times in the past 3 or 4 years. So they're very good. There's definitely a market for a team, but I think kind of steering away from the past and looking for the future with a new name and a new franchise, that kind of thing, is something the NBL wants. I don't think they'd want to bring back old teams. I feel like if they brought new teams in, even if they're in the same cities, new names, that kind of thing. And yeah, there's definitely a market for it here for sure.
Yeah, it's just going to be great to sort of branch out and have it in other places. That's been the beauty of the NBL Blitz, moving it around the country and giving opportunities for fans to see all the teams all in the one spot, because we know it's difficult to travel around this massively diverse country. You're in Canberra, I'm in Perth, so it sort of just says it right there basically. So maybe it could be the Canberra Cold, I don't know. So we'll keep brainstorming names. I'm sure we can come up with something much better than that. So the Perth Wildcats do play Melbourne United on August 27, and that's a Wednesday, and Illawarra on Friday, August 29. So check out those ones, and NBL action is going to be coming to you much sooner than you think. We're already in July. Who would have thought? Let's get to the regular season matches first. So a bit of a breakdown. So there's a 5-game stretch on the road, which Perth Wildcats fans know all too well when they're kicked out of RAC Arena as the formerly Hopman Cup, now the United Cup. The tennis comes to Perth. So they'll travel to Tasmania. Then they'll play Adelaide on the 28th of the 12th, Brisbane on the 1st of the 1st, New Zealand on the 4th of January, and Southeast Melbourne on the 10th 10th of January as well. So they got 5 games back to back to back to back. Quite a mouthful that was too, let alone very difficult to play if you're Perth as well. This is clearly like that part of the season where if you start off pretty well, like even if you're, even with your wins and losses, if you're slightly ahead, even better. And then if they can go like 4-1 on the road, which we've seen they can do before, like they are not afraid of traveling and playing interstate, that they can do it. They've done it. It suddenly builds up your entire season before the back half of that run, which I'll get to very soon. But just talk about us and your thoughts about that 5-game away stretch. It's going to be pretty brutal, but provides an opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely provides an opportunity. I really think when you come to Perth as a Perth player, you also accept the fact that you're going to be doing a lot of travel. And I think that we actually are the best road team. I think we survive the best on the road. But something we did see actually a little bit last year was when we come home from the road games, we weren't as good. And I'm not sure why that was, but they were really good away on the road. We saw a lot more deeper rotations instead of having like maybe 8 players playing. We had to see 10 people playing, and it's also provides an opportunity for players to get a bit of a step up, especially if they're kind of waiting for their turn. And some of the stars, they've just played so many games, they're traveling everywhere, they need a bit of a rest, and so getting those young guys a bit more of an opportunity for that. And look, I think it provides a massive opportunity. If we can get through that, we can withstand anyone, I reckon. And if we can show the league that we can do everything on the road, we can do at home, I reckon we can show the league what's up.
Yeah, no, absolutely as well too. And after they have that final game on the road in that stretch against Southeast Melbourne on the 10th of January, they actually come back to Perth for Hoops Fest, which is on the 16th of January against Illawarra. So that's where, of course, that in-season, it's not a tournament, it's sort of a one-off kind of, I guess, the gather round, the magic round, the NBL equivalent of that. So I went to 4 of the 5 games last season. That was amazing. Really happy that's in Perth, as no doubt you are happy the Blitz is in Canberra. So that will be brilliant too. But sort of as I alluded to a bit earlier, 3 of their last 4 games are at home at RAC Arena in front of the Loyal Red Army and also the Loyal Wildcat Wrap listeners too. But in February, there's Cairns, Brisbane, Adelaide mixed in with an away trip to Sydney as the third leg of that final 4 weeks of the regular season. So, on paper, you think Cairns and Brisbane are definitely winnable. And Adelaide as the final game of the season against Bryce at home. Well, the NBL could not have scheduled that any better from a potentially top 4, potentially a play-in game perspective. Who knows how it's all going to play out? But just round us out with thoughts on those final 4 games in particular, 3 of them being at home.
Yeah, that's a massive advantage. We know how well the Wildcats play in front of the Red Army and how influential the Red Army actually is on games. I mean, you watch it on TV and how loud they are. It's insane. It's crazy. But look, yeah, definitely on paper, Cairns, definitely winnable game on paper. But you can never rule anyone out in the league. But on paper, I'd say that's a winnable game. Brisbane, look, when I was in Brisbane last year, I did watch a few of their games and I thought they could really play some good basketball, but on paper for now, winnable, but definitely have the potential to give us a good shot. And then Adelaide being our last game, I mean, it can't get any better than that, really. It's going to be a sold-out crowd, hopefully, like massive game, and yeah, I reckon it's going to be a big test. We see how stacked Adelaide is this year, so yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of Adelaide too, they first play them on November 9 at Adelaide with Bryce before coming back to the jungle on Sunday, December 7th. So that's going to be quite I think everyone's going to be having those eyes on that game, no matter who support, just to see what the Red Army do. So I really hope they don't boo him. I hope that they have moved on from those feelings and hope they just cheer him, applaud him at the start. But then it's just game on after that. And you have to show respect to someone who's done so much for this competition, for this team, for those fans. So yeah, actually just before we move on to the Ignite Cup, what and how do you think it's going to be perceived by the Perth Wildcats fans when they see Bryce in a blue jersey for the first time in the flesh?
Yeah, look, if you're listening and you go to the games, please don't boo. Please don't boo. It definitely makes us look really unprofessional as fans and that kind of thing. And look, yes, you can be upset, but look, it's not worth ruining someone's entire week if you're just yelling really, quite harsh heckles and booing and that kind of stuff. But also on the other end, as a basketball player, you've made a decision, and you have to live with the consequences of that decision as well. So look, I think there may be a little bit of booing, but hopefully not too much. And if you're listening, don't boo, because it just makes us look unprofessional. And for how much he's done for this club, especially, you can't really disrespect a player like that. Even if he has kind of done a bit of a dodgy move, just have to respect him and respect his greatness for sure.
Yep, summed up nicely there. And finishing us off from a fixture perspective is the Ignite Cup, the new in-season competition. It was done as the NBL Cup back in 2020. Actually, Perth won that, surprisingly too. Who would have thought? But Wednesday night prime time, so it's part of 20 extra games added to the regular season. Every quarter counts. The top two face off for the final with $400,000 up for grabs, of which players receive 60% of the winnings, and every game is still relevant and important to the regular season. So you can't just say we're not interested in the Ignite Cup, we just want to play regular season. Every game still counts towards the regular season. So their 4 games are the 15th of October at RAC Arena up against Brisbane, the 22nd of October at Cairns, the 29th of October at Tasmania, and then the 28th of January at RAC Arena up against Southeast Melbourne Phoenix. So not so much the 4 opponents per se, Zach, but your quick thoughts on what you thought of the Ignite Cup when it was announced, that in-season tournament, just to make things maybe a little bit more interesting.
I think it's really great. We saw how well it worked in the NBA last season, bringing traction to the regular season. I think a problem that not so much in the NBL but NBA, they were having struggling with people actually watching the regular season and getting excitement around the regular season. So, look, I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be amazing. I think it'll honestly be like on a finals kind of environment, type games. So, look, I'm really looking forward to it, and I think it'll be an absolute smasher.
Yeah, no, it's something different for the NBL to do, but the NBL have always just been amazing at bringing in new initiative, just rolling with them, and the fans just seem to love it. Whether it's Hoops Fest, whether it's the NBL Blitz taking it to different cities, and then of course now the Ignite Cup. So yeah, for mine, it's a bit of a winner, and as you said, it adds a little bit of life to maybe different parts of the season that might get a little bit bogged down. So especially I like the fact that they've started having those sort of 3 games back to back to back, but then you sort of push the final game to a little bit later on in the season, when maybe it can be getting a little bit tough before you get to that final stretch. Just to finish us off, obviously the most important part that we haven't talked about throughout the whole podcast, and it's the ever divisive logo change. So it split everyone down the middle, Zach. So give us your thoughts. Are you a big fan of it? Are you terrible, shouldn't have changed it, or you're not a fan of it yet, but it's maybe slightly growing on you?
Yeah, definitely. Look, the design definitely has some room to grow in my heart for sure. But I do like the way they're moving with. We've gotten rid of our old, Bryce Cotton. We're moving in a new direction. Let's make a new logo. Let's become different, and let's not become the Bryce Cotton team. Let's become the Perth Wildcats as a whole. So, look, I'm really, really happy with the direction they're moving. Just the design is, it's interesting.
Yeah, I was indifferent to it at the start. I was just like, okay, that's sort of interesting. Like I didn't hate it or anything, and then I didn't love it, and then it sort of just become part of whenever they had the new logo that was introduced all those years ago. So it will just be commonplace, and I will get used to it. I like the fact that, and I don't know if you saw the video, I'm sure you did, where they sort of discussed and broke down how they came to the logo using different parts of different logos over the time. And that sort of just gave me a little bit more appreciation that they didn't just chuck in, okay, Canva, give me a new Wildcats logo with different colors. So that they definitely put some thought into it. And I thought that was a nice video to release. But unfortunately, time has gotten the best of us. That is the end of the Wildcat Wrap Season 2. Zac, an absolute pleasure, privilege, and a joy to have you on to one of our early season podcasts. We know it was a bit of a longer one, but so much to cover in the off season and a lot of time between our first pod, which is mainly focused around one man that we still managed to speak of quite a bit during this podcast too. Good old BC. But Zac, just before you let you go, can you obviously give us and our loyal fans a bit about your socials, how they can find you and follow you at everything Wildcats? And thanks for coming on to give us some great thoughts for you and from you about the Perth Wildcats.
Thanks so much, Adam. Thanks for having me. Thanks to the Basketball Fix bringing me on and giving me the opportunity. It's been great. It's been an absolute pleasure. Look, in Instagram, just type in everything Perth Wildcats, all lowercase. We post news stories. We'll do some Instagram lives, just to discuss little things and stuff like that. But yeah, absolutely. Chuck us a follow if you're really, really into, the deeper dive into the Perth Wildcats and behind the scenes. Thank you so much, guys.
Awesome. Now, just remember, if you haven't already, don't forget to like, subscribe, give us a rating and review at the Basketball Fix. So all of the great stuff can be found there. The Wildcat Wrap definitely high up there, but there are also some other incredible podcasts from all the other teams that are slowly bringing out their content too. But anything you need to know about Basketball, hit us up, the Basketball Fix, and also the Wildcat Wrap too. If you need anything that you would like to know about basketball, just hit us up at Wildcat Wrap and also the Basketball Fix. But from Adam and Zac, we're out for now.
Did enough to wrench it away. Crossing the dime for Hensel. You're kidding me. Dech and resolve has been tested. Cotton drops. Not sure what to do, so kicks it back up to the top. Shot clock at 5 for Cotton. That's ridiculous.